Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic host of Bachelor Nation News. What is that? Another Chris Harrison, Nick Viall video. Yes, Nick responds and reacts to the Chris Harrison podcast shade. In short, Chris Harrison said people were gunning for my job, and we get to watch Nick's response live. And, of course, he's a little defensive. He's like, what? He goes, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. He gives it the old dad response, which is good. So we'll get into it right now. Follow me on Instagram at DNeals, patreon.com/Dave Neal for behind-the-scenes bonus content. I shared with you guys some inner workings of what's going on with regards to my stand-up show that's coming up in San Diego, February 15th. That's going to be a big sold-out show with Katie Thurston. Katie and I are going to be doing stand-up and a live Q&A with some other fun comedians. So link in the comment section below if you want to join us. Tickets will sell out, so definitely get on top of that and get on top of this. Let's listen to Nick's response. Of course, Chris Harrison has a new hit podcast, and he said people were gunning for him. I'll share what Chris Harrison said, but let's first start here.
We do indeed. Chris Harrison's podcast.
Oh, it dropped today.
I think it technically dropped yesterday. It was marked as January 8th, but it was 2 episodes. The first one was just him. The second one, Lauren Zima was on it with him. And it was basically
It was like him and Lauren just going back and forth.
A lot of the first episode was him talking directly to like the Bachelor fan base, saying how much he appreciates them. He loves when people like come up to him and tell them how much the show means to them. And he wants to create more of like an honest and open relationship with the fans, which kind of gave the implication that at some point he's going to have people participating in the show or calling in. It's going to be focused, I guess, a lot about relationships, but
ask Chris.
Boy, who could they get that from? If you guys want to call in, I have a voicemail line. I'm playing it on my daily podcast, 401-213-9828. You guys can call in, leave a voicemail, and I'll get to it every afternoon. Bachelor Rush Hour, the hit podcast. All right, Podcast Wars, here we go.
Every Monday.
Ask Chris. No, but I thought it was interesting. He was talking about, when all this happened, certain people wanted to defend him, and he was just in the mindset of,
Did he bring me up?
Don't engage. He brought up people who were very supportive. He talked about like Sean and Catherine. He was going down this whole list. In the first episode, he talked about how there were people that he wouldn't name that saw it as an opportunity and were gunning for his job.
All right, so look at Nick there. All right, so let's hear from what Chris Harrison actually said, and then we're going to go to Nick's reaction here. You're going to like this. It's a fun one. It's a good one.
And, Nick Viall was another one who...
Same shirt?
Nick wasn't really strongly
Still
against me or said anything, but, I think Nick was one of those among many who probably saw the blood in the water and saw the opportunity of a job that would be really phenomenal. And I had no doubt he wanted that job. But we saw each other at Wells and Sarah's wedding and gave each other big hugs. Saw Chris Soules there too. It was good.
And of course he wanted the job. I think I shared actually some comments of what he actually said regarding wanting the job.
Everything.
Bisexual relationships.
The dismissive that he's been calling exes. Hold on one second. We played this just a couple days ago. And I think but it's
The show. I don't know if the show wants to be, but the show has become like ingrained in pop culture and society and
about. Here's what Caitlin said after. All right, so clearly they wanted the job. Caitlin wanted the job. Nick wanted the job. Jillian Harris said she wanted the job. Hey, anyone would have taken the job. Jorge, the Mexican bartender, he would have loved the job. People go, Dave, why you call the Mexican bartender Jorge? That was his name, you idiot. Someone said that in the comment section. How derogatory for you to call the Mexican bartender Jorge. I go, that's his name. What do you want me to do? All right, funny. You guys crack me up. All right, anyway, so you heard what Chris Harrison said. He didn't say it in a really scandalous way, but he was, it always comes off worse. We enlarge it with the clickbait, and here we are. Nick's response.
Talking about, when all this happened, certain people wanted to defend him, and he was just in the mindset of,
Did he bring me up?
Don't engage. He brought up people who were very supportive.
Oh, that sounds like an ex. What were they saying about me? Was it like good? What was like the vibe? So you were at the farmer's market getting spinach and organic, and she mentioned me. So like, what was the tone of which she said what she said? Was it like he saw blood in the water? He was like, he saw blood in the water. Like, how is he feeling? Not that I care. I don't really care about it. It's no big deal. It's over. But like, does he have my phone number still?
He talked about like Sean and Catherine. He was going down this whole list. In the first episode, he talked about how there were people that he wouldn't name that saw it as an opportunity and were gunning for his job.
By the way, credit to the producers here if Nick, in fact, wasn't going to talk about this and they brought it up. They clearly have the pulse on what's interesting, which is Nick's reaction to being called out by Chris Harrison.
He talked about how there were people that he wouldn't name that saw it as an opportunity and were gunning for his job. He said that you were one of the people that like saw blood in the water and kind of tried to capitalize off of the situation.
He said,
but he said you reconnected at Wells' wedding.
Wait, hold on.
And it was fine.
So he said I was gunning for his job?
Well, no, he said that you saw blood in the water of the situation when he went down.
But he didn't list me as one of the people like who reached out. Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he went down a whole list of everyone who was like...
That's the problem. Oh, this is the problem. This is like you watch the Oscars, and I want to thank Barry Levinstein, and I would like to thank Brian Friedman. I'd like to thank WME. And then if you forget one person, that one person goes, oh, you didn't want to thank your mom? Or God forbid you forget to thank your wife. Oh, boy. That's a silent treat. You know what? Thank me. I was breastfeeding while you were out there making out with Margot Robbie or whatever. I don't know. Not my world. Can you imagine? I was work, honey. I sucked face with Margot Robbie, but we're going to win an Oscar, so it was worth it. Anyway, so he gets into jilted lover. He didn't thank me?
Like, supportive of you.
And was this in the context of saying he should be supported?
It was more so talking about when you have like a scandal of this size that continues like popping.
No, Chris Harrison didn't say he should have been supported. He just said, I didn't want people to vouch for me because they would have gotten so much hate. So he could understand why people wouldn't publicly support him.
People do try and jump in and like add to the narrative and they mean well, but he actually encouraged a lot of people to stay silent because he saw like the negative ramifications of like paparazzi and headlines and whatever. And he didn't want his family to be a part of that. And he was saying, like people in Bachelor Nation who like, he was more of like a gratefulness of all these people reaching out and like how like people he's supported over the years then turned around and supported him. And then he was like, Nick saw blood in the water.
I'm really disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Oh, the worst. You ever hear this from a parent? No, Jeffrey, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. No, don't be disappointed. Be mad. Throw something at me. Beat me. Hit me with a belt.
Yeah, I think, Chris, take more accountability for what you did.
He said he stands by.
Whoa! Shots fired. Wow. So we've got Nick says, take more accountability. All right, let's watch that one more time. I didn't watch this far. I didn't realize we were going to be getting gloves off. I'm going to have to add the old gloves off emoji to the thumbnail here.
I'm really disappointed. I'm not mad.
To the paper shuffle.
I'm just disappointed.
I mean, yeah, because maybe for all we know, Nick was on the phone with Chris and was comforting him and all these things. But this is a problem. Like, Nick, you got to listen to what Chris Harrison said. Chris Harrison's tone, I mean, look, like here I am playing marriage counselor. How did Chris make you feel? Chris, by the way, I like that shirt, Nick. That's a nice let's say a nice like light shirt jacket there. Good season. Either way, but the Converse I'm not a Converse fan. Okay, so either way, Nick, listen to what Chris said, and I don't think you'll feel as bad because he mentioned like 30 people's names.
Yeah, I think, Chris, take more accountability for what you did.
He said he stands by the point he was trying to make. He like kind of stands by what.
And Chris's point, I don't want to speak for Chris, but I believe the point Chris was trying to make overall was that we need to give more grace for people to take the time to respond. That's the point he was trying to make overall. And yet here we are in the moment with rash decisions and reactions, but that's okay. It sells YouTubes.
But he says he was apologetic for how messy it was and how it was delivered. But I did find it interesting. Like he's like, no, I stand by what I said or what I was trying to say at least.
Chris, I would love to hear you make that point in a way that you think would be non-messy and then see if people think it holds up.
I love Amanda in this way.
Yikes.
I mean, I've never been like Chris.
I mean, I don't disagree with Chris's point. The problem that Chris had, which we talk over and over, was the execution of the point. He didn't speak to Rachel Lindsay in a way that gave her grace the way he was seeking it for Rachel Kirkconnell and Matt James. Could you say it any clearer than that? I'm yelling from the studio rooftop here. Like, the point's fine. We live in a society where people want to get your instant reaction. Well, what do you have to say about this? Let me think about it. If you're going to hold me to my words, give me a second to respond. And of course, it didn't come off well. I think we can agree on all that.
Chris's bestie, but we've always you know,
he did tie it up with a nice little bow.
Grew
See, the producer on the right seems to have a much more graceful digestion of everything that was listened to, and maybe that's the only one who actually listened to it.
Disappointed. I'm pretty sure Sean Lowe would have taken the job if he was offered it.
Yeah. I think anyone would have.
Or Wells or Ben or whatever.
Anyone would have.
He said Chris said he thought Wells was a shoo-in. And apparently Chris like reached out to Wells and was like, he kind of assumed he would get it. And he was just like, run with it.
This is like siblings getting upset when the dad gives more attention to the other one. Why didn't you put me through baseball camp? You know,
I think Chris wanted it to go to Wells.
I was the one who wanted to have the dance recital. You know, just anger when we're in our 40s. It all started when I was 7 and I didn't get what I wanted for Christmas.
And then last thing, just because I think it'll be a nice little transition into our bios, one of the women we are going to be talking about, who's on Zach's season, had a hard launch of her divorce.
We had this story 3 days ago. All right, folks. Hey, you can't blame them. We're just on top of it. All right, speaking of being on top of it, get your finger on top of that like button. Like this. This might be a best of 2023 already. I just feel like we're throwing fastballs down the middle right now. I really feel like you, me, we are in flow state, power recapper, power listeners. I'll pat myself on the back. I don't care.
Let me scrap this whole thing, to be honest. I don't know.
All right, well, if you like what I'm doing, join the Patreon in at least Bachelor Rush Hour. I'm on fire. I'm going to the podcast right after this to give a larger summation of today's news. You're going to love what you listen to. I appreciate y'all so much. Rate it, review it, subscribe if you haven't already. You got to subscribe to the YouTube. Double check. Don't have some bystander syndrome where you wait for someone else to subscribe. Get off your butt, find the subscribe button on your phone, grandma. I'm just kidding. And get out there and hit it. You've been listening. If you've listened to over or watched over 7 of my videos, here's my plea to you. Subscribe. It helps the channel grow. It tells YouTube that people like what we're doing. We are hitting the ground running this year. So much good news to share, some of which I shared on today's Patreon regarding podcast networks that want to work with me, that also might work with Nick Viall and can you imagine if we become employees together? No, that's not how it works. All right, folks, we'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye.